What if you're not becoming who you think you are? You look fine, you sound fine, you're doing all the same things, but something feels off. You don't feel like yourself. And the scary thing is, nothing else has really changed. Maybe the problem isn't around you. It might be you. And the longer you pretend not to notice, the heavier it gets. So what if you're not just changing? You're becoming the villain. The first sign you need to look out for is ego. You might think you're just being confident, but sometimes what you're really doing is creating an image you're afraid anyone might question. It feels like confidence, but honestly, a lot of it's just you trying to cover up what you don't want people to see. You start believing you're smarter, more capable, or more deserving than everyone else, even when you've only done enough to talk a big game, not enough to actually back it up. You act like you've got all the answers, even when you're unsure, because admitting you don't know something feels uncomfortable as hell. And once you settle into that version of yourself, it gets way too easy to stop questioning anything. You start brushing off feedback without even noticing. Mostly because deep down you know it could crack the image you've worked so hard to protect. So instead of listening, you shut people out. You'd rather protect your pride than admit you might be wrong, or that you screwed something up. Eventually, you tune out anything that doesn't match the version of the story you've built yourself around. Then you start trying to control everything, every detail, every moment, so no one catches you slipping. On the outside, you still look confident, but underneath it all, you're constantly packing up cracks in an image that feels like it'd collapse any second. That's when things get risky. Once you stop being open to learning, you stop growing. When proving you're right becomes more important than getting it right, you push away the people who can actually help you. You start chasing admiration instead of truth. You act like you're above criticism. You turn every disagreement into a battle you have to win, even if it destroys your relationships. And when you think you're making strong decisions, you might actually be flying blind, because you've shut out anything that doesn't flatter your ego. At that point, you don't even realize you've become the problem. That's how it starts. The second you put your ego above everything else, you're not in control anymore. You're slowly turning into the villain. And there are actually more signs you should be paying attention to, like when you constantly feel the need to bring up your accomplishments, or when you get irritated the second the spotlight isn't on you, or when you avoid anything that won't get you immediate praise or attention. Those aren't signs of real confidence, they're signs of ego. And the longer you let that mindset lead, the more it chips away at you. You stop focusing on growth and start obsessing over how you look. It becomes more about appearing successful than actually being good at what you do. And while you're busy keeping up the image, you stop seeing how your behavior is affecting the people around you. Another sign is when morality starts feeling like a theater. Let me explain. It's not that you're faking it. Not exactly. You honestly believe you're doing the right thing. You tell the truth, you help people, you try to be kind. But deep down, something else might be driving it. You act generous, not to give, but to be seen as generous. You're honest, not to reveal the truth, but to stay in control. You follow the rules, not out of respect, but because they protect your image. It's subtle. You don't even realize you're performing. But when you stop questioning your own motives, when you start thinking that looking moral means you are moral, that's the real problem. Because the more convinced you are of your own goodness, the less you notice the harm it might be causing. But the more you get attached to the appearance of being good, the more you start using morality as a way to stay in control. And that's when you use morality to dominate, not to connect. You say you live by principle, but really, you use your values to demand obedience, not understanding. You expect others to follow your standards, or feel guilty if they don't. You moralize instead of listening. You don't compromise, you dictate. And worst of all, you believe in your own performance. You think your control is compassion. You think your judgment is wisdom. But if your morality always puts you in the superior role, if your values never ask anything of your ego, then you're not leading by example. You're weaponizing virtue. You control people. And once you start doing that, using morality to elevate yourself, it's only a matter of time before you confuse it with who you are, to the point where your beliefs don't feel personal anymore. They feel like the default. Like everyone should live by them. You value discipline, so you assume everyone else should. You prefer harmony, so conflict starts to feel wrong. You're cautious, so the risk looks reckless. But those aren't moral truths. They're just extensions of your personality, your fears, your preferences, your comfort zone. And when you stop questioning where your values come from, you start enforcing them like law. You assume anyone who disagrees is just misinformed, weak, or selfish at worst. You don't reflect because you're too sure you're right. But the truth is, your so-called principles might not be rooted in ethics. They might just be protecting your ego. That's not strength. That's not morality. That's control. So here's where to start. Ask what your values are really serving, your growth or your image. If you can't be honest with yourself about that, then you're not standing on principle. You're just projecting. And a lot of that projection, it comes from the parts of yourself you keep avoiding, the feelings you've pushed down, the emotions you'd rather pretend you don't feel. Powerful emotions like hatred, envy, greed, and the need to control, those aren't the real problem. The real problem is when you pretend they don't exist. That's when they start messing with everything. And most of the time, you won't even realize it. Hatred shows up as quiet resentment. Envy starts looking like motivation. Greed hides behind ambition. Control disguises itself as leadership. So don't ignore what you're feeling. The issue isn't that these emotions exist. It's when you lie to yourself about them. That's when they start calling the shots. And you stop seeing the damage you're doing. And by the time you realize it, you're not protecting anyone. You're just protecting yourself, your ego. And it's already cost more than you know. Because when you spend long enough hiding behind the mask, it becomes the only reflection you recognize, and you forget who you were before you wore it.